This is the Evan Miller Report on Pundit Press Radio. Due to time-sensitive information from a delayed broadcast that aired the day before on SHR Media, some stories may be updated or irrelevant at this time. We hope you enjoy this broadcast of the Evan Miller Report on Pundit Press Radio from SHR Media.
This is an Evan Miller special report.
Thank you, Dan Butcher, and thank you, Liz Lores. I'm Jason Miller, live in the SHR Media Newsroom. We are going to go ahead and join the BBC News Channel over in London for now the latest on what is going on in France at this evening. We'll get the latest developments starting right now.
Looking at us as if we did it. Everybody says, you are Arab, you are Muslim.
It is 1 in the morning here in London.
9 in the morning in Singapore on Friday the 9th of January, broadcasting to viewers around the world. You're watching Newsday.
Hello and thank you for joining us. French security forces are continuing a huge search operation for the two gunmen suspected of carrying out the deadly attack on the satirical magazine Charlie Hebdo.
12 people were killed when the gunmen attacked the offices in central Paris on Wednesday. The two suspects have been Emma Sharif and Saïd Kouachi, two brothers who were born in France of Algerian descent.
They were spotted at a petrol station some 80 kilometres from Paris at Villers-Cotterêts. Armed police have also been searching in a forest northeast of the capital. Our correspondent Damien Grammaticus has the latest on the hunt for the suspects.
Swooping low, police hunting the Paris attackers. An hour's drive outside the city, a petrol station. But it seems they were just a couple of hours behind their suspects. As they looked through the security camera footage, there were fears the men were heading back towards Paris. The manager said the attackers, still carrying Kalashnikovs, had stolen food and fuel. So military helicopters, doors open, armed soldiers visible inside, flew low over the roads, looking for the grey Renault getaway car. The two suspects, brothers Sharif and Saïd Kouachi, are French-Algerian, both in their 30s. Sharif had ties to radical groups. He appeared in this documentary about jihadis and was jailed for 3 years for helping send young French Muslims to fight in Iraq. By early afternoon, anti-terror units were converging on one village, Longpont in Aisne. Once in the village, they moved in cautiously. The officers know the attackers have already killed 2 policemen, one executed in cold blood, and fear what they will do if they are cornered. Officers blocked all roads to the village. Well, this is as close as we can get. The road down to the village of Longpont, just down there, now sealed off. The armed police who we've seen in this area all day have converged on there, and that's now where they're focusing their search. This local man said the police are going door to door, checking every house. France remains on its highest alert. The killer's still on the loose, but the net may be closing. Damien Grammaticus, BBC News, Longpont in northern France.
Well, President Obama has just made a visit to the French embassy in Washington to pay his respects for the victims of this attack. The president signed a book of condolences and joined the French ambassador Gérard Araud for a moment of silence. He wrote, "We go together forward, knowing that terror is no match for freedom," and he signed off with "Vive la France." The attack in Paris has triggered an outpouring of support across the United States, with many cities staging vigils for the victims.
Earlier, villages, towns and cities across France came to a standstill as people responded to President Hollande's call for a minute's silence to remember the victims. Reports on the day France mourned for victims of terrorism.
The deep bells of Notre Dame marked France's day of mourning. At midday, hundreds of people stood in silence, with the only sound, rain on umbrellas. Strained faces remembered the 12 people killed at the office of the satirical magazine Charlie Hebdo yesterday. Many held high the journalist's pencil in support of freedom of speech. They finished with applause for those who had died in a terrorist attack.
I feel we need to protect freedom in France. What those people want to do is to break that, and we have to fight for freedom.
Je suis Charlie. I am Charlie. Ich bin Charlie. Wherever you are in the world, this is a tragic event. And I'm going to march on Saturday to show my defiance to murderers and evil fundamentalists.
The French President, François Hollande, was at police headquarters. 2 officers were killed in yesterday's attack. More pictures emerged of some of the other people killed in yesterday's attack, including Elsa Kaya, a columnist, the only woman to lose her life. And today a photograph was released of the entrance to the room where the editorial meeting was taking place and where the gunman opened fire. In Paris, there was another shooting. Early morning, and police units were called to the southern suburb of Montrouge. A policewoman and a police colleague were shot by a man with an assault rifle. Heavily armed police units arrived to search buildings for the gunman. Once again, residents in the French capital had witnessed shooting on their streets.
I heard 3 shots. I went down and saw a policewoman lying on the floor. Someone was trying to resuscitate her. I saw a policeman who had been shot and went and called an ambulance.
After the phone calls were made from here that 2 police officers had been shot, anti-terrorist units rushed to the scene. The injured were taken away in ambulances under full police escort, and an investigation began as to what the significance of this was. The police do not believe there is a direct link with yesterday's attack, but they have opened an anti-terrorist investigation. The policewoman later died of her injuries. In the face of these attacks, the French political establishment has tried to give a united response. Today, the former French president, Nicolas Sarkozy, was invited back to the Élysée Palace.
Civilized people, whatever their conviction, should unite in the face of this fanatic barbarity. This is a declaration of war on civilization, and the responsibility of civilization is to defend itself.
Candles and flowers have been laid close to the offices of Charlie Hebdo. It will defy its attackers by next week publishing a special edition with a print run of 1 million copies. Tonight, the Eiffel Tower dimmed its lights in tribute to those who had died. Gavin Hewitt, BBC News, Paris.
Well, the partner of Stéphane Charbonnier, the editor of Charlie Hebdo, who was among the 12 killed, paid an emotional tribute to him. She said that the massacre could have been prevented.
Mon amour, je l'appelais comme ça. Et j'ai pas perdu Charlie Hebdo, j'ai perdu l'être aimé.
I have not lost Charlie Hebdo. I have lost the man I loved. I'm not here speaking as the ex-secretary of François Fillon, but as the companion of a man murdered by barbarous people. The Republic was guilty, and Philippe knows. He had the guts to publish the cartoons of Muhammad. The attackers were systematically protected by the police. There were hate messages, and no one stood up to defend them. That is the reality. The massacre could have been avoided, and we did not do that. I loved him, and I admired him before falling in love with him because he was defiant. That's the way he was. He felt life was not worth a great deal if he did not defend an ideal. Do you know people who are capable of dying for their views? No, because they have just died. They have just been murdered.
That was the partner of the editor of Charlie Hebdo speaking earlier. Now, France has one of the biggest Muslim communities in Western Europe, some 5 million strong, and some Muslim leaders have expressed fears that their people will face a backlash despite condemning the attacks in the strongest possible terms and upholding the right to freedom of speech. Our special correspondent Fergal Keane reports on the response among the Muslim leaders.
Banlieue, It means suburb, but it's a word often loaded with negative association. In the minds of some French, these estates can be breeding grounds of radicalism. Here in the northern suburb of Gennevilliers, Sheriff Kouachi, one of the alleged attackers, lived quietly before becoming one of the most wanted men in France. His neighbours remember him as polite and kind.
Sage, sympa, correct.
He was nice, correct and clean, and very helpful with disabled people. I saw him here every day. The last time was 3 days ago. There is shock here, and among some Muslims I spoke with, a fear that attacks like this threaten their place in France. This woman was too afraid to show her face.
Because we have children, we are afraid of everything. Everybody is looking at us as if we did it. Everybody says, you are Arab, you are Muslim.
While there have been isolated attacks on Muslim-owned properties, there is a national drive for unity. At the Grand Mosque of Paris today, an unprecedented show of interfaith solidarity. Buddhist, Jewish, Christian leaders joined Muslims in the silence for the dead. There will be people in this society who now fear Islam. What do you say to them?
Eh bien, nous sommes là pour dire que...
We are here to say that Islam has its own full place in the Republic, and we say this together in unanimity. France is outraged, but not yet polarized between Muslims and the rest. But that isn't to underestimate the potential for a much wider crisis. Muslim elders say the key to tackling the problem is breaking the power of radical Islam among the alienated young. We need to be very careful with such young people. They are nurtured by fundamentalists who are members of terrorist groups. These people should learn the values of democracy and the Republic in our schools. They should not commit these kind of crimes. The background from which the attackers emerged was impoverished and claustrophobic. They were radicalized both by personal circumstance and larger politics. The challenge for the French government isn't just a security one. It is to make those who feel alienated, who owe no allegiance to the French state, feel part of a French identity. Fergal Keane, BBC News, Paris.
Now, some breaking news coming in from Sri Lanka and the presidential elections taking place there. The president, Mahendra Rajapaksa, has conceded defeat in the presidential election. That's according to the presidential press secretary. He's faced unexpected challenge for the position from his health minister, Maithripala Sirisena. So just to reiterate, we'll have more coming up once we get some more figures for you. But in Sri Lanka's presidential election, the president, Mahendra Rajapaksa, has conceded election defeat. We'll, of course, monitor that for you.
You're watching Newsday on the BBC, live from Singapore and London. So to come on the program,
And that's the latest on France from BBC World News. I'm Jason Miller, along with Corey Evan, and you're listening to a special edition of the Evan Miller Report tonight. Also coming up on tonight's program, 15 military bases are supposed to be closed over in Great Britain. We'll give you details on that tonight. Also, the threat of a terror attack in the UK is increasing, and security services cannot be expected to stop every plot. This is according to the head of MI5 as the situation in France develops. Also, tonight, John Daniel will be joining us to react to one California senator's sudden announcement of retirement. All those stories and more, plus Corey Abbott.
Thank you as always, Jay. A tourist boat goes down near Costa Rica, drowning 3 and leaving 4 more missing. I have the latest updates on that story. Folks are still buying GM and Honda cars despite those companies' PR troubles, but folks working at a Kmart distribution center in North Carolina will soon not have a job to drive those cars to. Parents, inmates, and YouTubers will be feeling mighty low after today's lawsuits across America. Scout's honor on that one. And Betty White has yet another golden boy in entertainment. Jay, so a great Evan Miller report ahead. Right, Jay?
Absolutely right, and we will be right back after this commercial break with more of the Evan Miller Report, your conservative media news source, right after these messages. You're listening to SHR Media.
You're listening to the Evan Miller Report on SHR Media and Pundit Press Radio.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
How you doing? John Grant here. When I'm not slaving over a hot microphone on the 405radio.com Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern, I check out Sean and Clint here at Sackheads Radio. We all appreciate the best political bloggers, writers, and commentators. We either get them on our shows or we make fun of them, as it should be. So check us out live Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern or forever on the podcasts on the 405radio.com.
This is Tammy Jackson, inviting you to join me on the Tammy Jackson Show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific on the 405radio.com. Put down that remote and tune into the show that covers politics, guns and the Second Amendment, religious liberties, sanctity of life, the military, and more. I host newsworthy guests and work hard to be a conservative radio show that's not like all the others. So save Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific for me, Tammy Jackson, on the 405media.com.
Hello, I'm Paul, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is my professor, Dr. Larry Arnn, on the separation of church and state.
America's founders believed in the separation of church and state, in that the country was not to have an official religion or an official sect. But that did not mean that government was to be hostile to religion, or even indifferent to religion, as many today argue. In fact, America's founding document, the Declaration of Independence, includes both a reference to God as the author of the laws of nature and a confident assertion that human beings are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Far from being hostile or indifferent to religion, America's founders understood the theology of the Declaration to be an essential part of the education of citizens.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.org.
Hi, this is Rooster from Outcry Radio. Catch me here on Blog Talk Radio every Saturday night at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or follow my blog. Now, back to the Sackheads.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
In a moment, cancer changed our lives forever.
We were told nothing could be done to enjoy these final moments together.
But in that moment, when all seemed lost,
St. Jude Children's Research Hospital gave us hope.
Because at this moment, St. Jude Children's Research Hospital is saving lives with pioneering research and care. We're changing the way the world treats childhood cancer by sharing our discoveries with doctors and scientists everywhere.
And we'll never have to pay St. Jude for anything, ever.
At this moment, she wants to be in her own bed.
I want to be back at school with my friends.
I want to be outside playing.
Please take a moment and join St. Jude in finding cures and saving children. Visit stjude.org.
Let's get back to the Evan Miller Report on SHR Media and Pundit Press Radio.
And welcome back to the Evan Miller Report. I'm Jason Miller.
And I'm Corey Evan. It's a beautiful evening here.
It certainly is tonight. And coming up in about 10 minutes' time, we have the reaction and what the future is for California as longtime Senator Barbara Boxer has announced her sudden retirement. John Dadian, political analyst from San Diego, will be joining us to analyze and talk about how the GOP can possibly win a Senate seat in the next election cycle in California. It is possible, ladies and gentlemen, and he'll break down those numbers for us and see if it is still possible for that to happen. First, though, the threat of a terror attack in the UK is increasing, and the security services cannot be expected to stop every plot. This coming from the head of MI5 after the attack in France. He said the number of Brits who have traveled to Syria was now around 600. It comes as security has been increased on the France-UK border following the attack, as I mentioned, which left 12 dead. UK border staff has intensified checks on passengers and on vehicles and goods coming in from France following the killings in France. According to Home Secretary Theresa May from Berkshire, the move was a precautionary measure and was not as a result of any specific intelligence. However, Mr. Parker, who was named Director General of MI5 in March 2013, warned that the UK was facing more complex and ambitious plots by extremists. The shootings in Paris were a terrible reminder of the intentions of those who wish us harm, he said. It comes after a number of anti-terrorism operations in the UK in recent months, including 3 foil plots in the last 3 months, which Mr. Parker says that the deaths would certainly have resulted otherwise. He continued saying, but we cannot be complacent. Although we and our partners try our uttermost, we know that we cannot hope to stop everything. Speaking at MI5's headquarters, Mr. Parker said the security services knew a group of al-Qaeda extremists in Syria planned mass casualty attacks against the West, but he said the number of the crude but potentially deadly plots MI5 was facing had also increased. Last month, the gunman took hostages in a Sydney cafe, as we reported here on this program and as many others have, resulting in 2 of them being killed. The gunman, Mr. Haran Moranis, was himself killed as security forces moved in after a 16-hour siege. And of course, stay with the Evan Miller Report for the latest coming out of France. Anything that breaks and is coming out of there, we will of course bring to you here on the Evan Miller Report. Looking at some other headlines briefly tonight that are making news tonight. Bodies lay strewn on the streets of a key northeastern Nigerian town following an assault by military Islamists. The Boko Haram group attacked the Baga town on Wednesday after overrunning a military base there on Saturday, they said. Almost the entire town had been torched and the militants were now raiding nearby areas, they added. Boko Haram launched a military campaign, of course, back in 2009 to create an Islamic State in that country. It has taken control of many towns and villages in northeastern Nigeria in the last year. The conflict has displaced at least 1.5 million people, while more than 2,000 were killed last year. In Ukraine, their prime minister has blamed the Russian Secret Service for a attack against German government websites. A pro-Russian group has already claimed responsibility, but this is the first suggestion that it was backed by the Russian government. Prime Minister Arnesa Yostov made his remarks ahead of a meeting with German Chancellor Angela Merkel, but one expert questioned what real evidence there was for the claims. The attack targeted web pages for Ms. Merkel and the German parliament. Both sites were inaccessible from 10 o'clock Wednesday morning until the evening. A group calling itself Cyber Berkut claimed to be behind it. Berkut refers to Ukraine's now disbanded elite riot police force who are now accused of beating, torturing, and shooting demonstrators. Ahead of his meeting with Ms. Merkel, Mr. Yakovskov was asked by German TV reporters if pro-Russian hackers from Ukraine were responsible. He responded, quote, "I strongly recommend that the Russian Secret Service stop spending taxpayer money for cyber attacks against the Bundestag and Chancellor Merkel's office," he replied. Tit-for-tat cyber attack accusations are becoming more and more common, even though it is notoriously difficult to pinpoint where an attack originates. The U.S. is set to close 15 military bases across Europe. U.S. Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel has confirmed. The Pentagon says the move will save about $500 million a year and comes as the U.S. military seeks to shift its attention towards the Asia-Pacific region. But the U.S. has named RAF Lengteth to be the first permanent European base for its new F-35 aircraft fleet. The U.S. currently has more than 60,000 troops stationed in Europe alone, mostly in Germany, Italy, and the UK. the number will remain the same as the U.S. ramps up rotations within Europe for training programs. Many of the closures affect smaller bases that were remnants of the Cold War. And Corey Evan has the business news tonight. Corey, don't expect the markets to are doing too well today.
Well, Wall Street's got good numbers, so something's going right. The Dow's up 323 points at 17,907. The Nasdaq up 85 at 4736, and S&P 500 up 36 at 2062. So essentially, they're playing catch-up. At least the numbers would suggest such. 3.34 million shares were traded today. But yeah, this ought to affect it. After weathering a year filled with scandal, embarrassing missteps, and the tarnishing of a corporate image that few companies have ever endured, GM is ready to turn the page on 2014. Speaking before a group of reporters from the automaker's Detroit headquarters Thursday, CEO Mary Barra, who marks her first anniversary at the company's helm, said that she didn't expect it to unfold like it did, and it was clearly a tragedy and troubling, she said. She's also quoted as saying that GM is learning from those mistakes and moving forward. She started by creating a new office inside the company to oversee how it handles safety issues. After that, she announced the automaker would start holding executives and employees accountable for their actions, or lack thereof. Although Barish said she can tell GM is a better company, there's yet to be any third-party data to back that claim, if it ever comes. Still, there's no denying that buyers have gotten past the recall scandal and any doubts it may have created. GM sales climbed 5.6% last year, according to Auto data. That's equivalent to the sales increase of the overall U.S. auto industry over the same period. Meanwhile, the automaker is selling new models for more than $36,000 on average, no doubt on account of the brand new Corvette and the redesigned Camaro. That's the name of it. And in China, of course, they're a strong competitor. And in Europe, they managed to turn a profit for the first time. Moving on to a story from the Christian Science Monitor, Honda Motor Company has agreed to pay a record $70 million in fines for failing to report over 1,700 injuries and deaths in the span of 11 years, according to NHTSA today. Comprised of two $35 million fines, the penalty is the highest allowed by the U.S. against an automaker for reporting violations, according to the NHTSA. The Japanese automaker also agreed to stricter oversight by NHTSA and third-party audits to make sure federal safety reporting is accurately carried out in the future. So, Jay, hopefully all the safety stuff on your car is updated, especially since those airbags from Takata got recalled.
Certainly right. I certainly hope they're protected.
Yeah, make sure all your maintenance is all stamped up. Moving on to retail, JCPenney said today they'll close about 40 stores over the next year. The closures represent nearly 4% of the 1,000 stores in the U.S. and will affect about 2,200 employees, according to spokesman Joey Thomas. Penny stock was down 1.8% in morning trading today. Most locations will close on or about April 4th, according to Thomas. The announcement comes the day after the retailer said its same-store sales rose 3.7% during the crux of the holiday season, so it's interesting how they're doing this right now, despite strong sales, but at the same time I can understand why they're trying to reduce the number of stores they have. At the same time, Kmart is closing a distribution center in Greensboro, North Carolina in April, a move that will affect 130 workers, according to the company, as we keep covering their downward spiral here on the Evan Miller Report. Sears Holdings sent Fox News the following statement, quote, Sears Holdings is implementing a strategy to optimize our supply chain resources. Basically, it's saying, we're not doing well, so we have to shed some assets. Yeah, it's a very long, very lengthy sort of statement that they've sent me, so I'll go ahead and send this over to Jason to send to the Facebook page, facebook.com/The Evan Miller Report. And before I send it back to you, Jay, it's interesting to note that Kmart, they don't automatically search for new positions to put the affected workers into. They make them apply for those new ones. So, oh boy, for them.
Certainly indeed, Corey, and we'll be keeping an eye on those jobs as they become available. All right, folks, we're going to take a short break. When we come back here on the program tonight, Suddenly today, via a YouTube announcement, Senator Barbara Boxer has announced her retirement, which leaves a possible opening for a California Senate race. That's coming up in just one moment. All right, John, we're taking them.
Hey y'all, Cedric the Entertainer here with Niecy Nash, taking a break from shooting The Soul Man to introduce you to Patience.
Hi.
Patience is a patient at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital.
Families never receive a bill from St. Jude for anything because all a family should worry about is helping their child live.
St. Jude won't give up until they end childhood cancer, sickle cell, and other deadly diseases.
Because of you, there is St. Jude.
Learn more at stjude.org.
Live from Southern California, this is the Evan Miller Report. Jason Miller with news and politics, Corey Evan with business and entertainment. This is the Evan Miller Report on SHR Media and Pundit Press Radio. Here now, Jason Miller.
And welcome back to the Evan Miller Report. I'm Jason Miller. So glad you're with us tonight. And now, joining us now from San Diego, the most influential man in San Diego, at least one of them anyway, John Dadian, our political analyst, joins us now for reaction to a big story that hit our desk today, that Senator Barbara Boxer is retiring. Good evening, John.
Good evening.
Now, John, this was sort of sudden this morning because obviously her retirement was announced in an oddball way. It wasn't announced on TV, wasn't announced in D.C. It was announced via a YouTube video, and it was announced with an oddball interview with her grandson, Zach Rodham, the nephew of Hillary Rodham Clinton, and she sort of, in a way, promoted her grandson to be running as a replacement for her position when she does decide to retire.
Well, I don't know if her grandson is really considered top tier, but I think the way she did it was very smart because she got the point out that she wanted without taking any hard questions from the media. And more importantly, the reason she did it by video is once they had the video, they sent it out to their supporters. So actually, her supporters got it first before the media, and I think that was very smart for somebody who prided herself on being a grassroots activist.
It's very interesting. Never saw it done in that way before, but then we shouldn't be surprised about Democrats in California pulling this kind of stuff. Now, as some people may know, California is a very ultra-liberal state, and the GOP has not been successful in the past in running replacement candidates here in this state. And obviously, the likes of Senator Boxer and Senator Feinstein, they have been in here a very long time, 20-plus years on the job, and now this sudden retirement. Can the GOP win this possible seat, and when would this election possibly happen?
Well, of course, one of the most basic things in any election is you need to have a good candidate. So that's really where it's going to answer your question. It's going to depend on both. Not only a good Republican candidate, but if it's a good Republican candidate and a bad Democrat candidate, sure, a Republican can win it. You mentioned California is a very liberal state. Let me say specifically for your listeners, the difference is California.
Okay, looks like we have lost John Dadian at this particular point. So, John, if you can hear me on your end, if you can call back in, because we do want to get that side of the conversation here with you. So we do apologize, had a bit of technical difficulties with his feed. Obviously, he is driving now. He's over in the San Diego market. He does do PR for 6 television stations as far as political analysis goes. So we do appreciate him calling in tonight here. So hopefully we can get him back here on the line. Matter of fact, what we're going to do, we're going to try calling him back right now and see if we can get him back on the air. Okay, looks like we may have him back. Let me check that, see if we do. I apologize, ladies and gentlemen. John Dadian, do we have you back, sir? Okay, until we get John Dadian back, we'll send it over to Corey Evan. He has another news story, and as soon as John Dadian does call back in, we will, of course, give him priority and patch him right back in. Corey, why don't you go ahead and give us some of the stories going on here in the U.S. right now?
Right, I'll go ahead and do just that, starting with one about the NAACP. Get this, Jay. Colorado and federal authorities were trying to find the motive today for a homemade bomb planted behind NAACP offices in Colorado Springs, saying that they had not yet determined if it was a hate crime or an act of domestic terrorism.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Looks like we got John Dadian back, so we're going to go ahead and go right back to him. All right, John. Okay, we are back. We do apologize. We had a technical glitch there. I think that was your cell phone signal we had an issue with there at the particular moment. So, right back to your point, we were talking about the elections here in California and regarding Senator Boxer's retirement, and now this state is somewhat very liberal, and it's very hard for Republicans to win in this state.
That's correct, and a point that I probably got cut off that I was trying to make is the registration clearly bodes well for the Democrats. However, California, unlike most states for a federal seat, U.S. Senate, has an open primary type system, and that means the top two people of any party goes into the general. It could be two Democrats, it could be two Republicans. So here's one scenario. If it's 10 major Democrats, which may be the possibility that run, and only one or two Republicans, that means that there's a good chance a Republican could at least get into the runoff for the general election, and then it's going to depend on who is the better candidate.
Now, you speak of candidates. We, of course, have the unofficial announcement that Zach Rodham, who is the nephew of Hillary Rodham Clinton, is going to be running as a replacement, as the supposed replacement Democratic candidate for her seat. What Republicans are out there, John, that could possibly run to the likes of Zach? Zach is in his late 20s, early 30s, and so that would potentially bring out the young adult vote here in the state for that Senate race. How can the grand old party bring out a grand young candidate?
Well, I'll be happy to answer that question as far as the possible Republicans, but I gotta say that as far as all the major candidates that are being talked about, Zach, I don't think even has a chance as far as finishing in the top five. I mean, you've got the party on the Democratic side, you've got the possible current Attorney General, the current Lieutenant Governor, the current Controller. There are some big-name Democrats, and then there's a famous celebrity who might run. So I don't think Zach has a chance, no matter how much Barbara Boxer would like to see him get into the public arena. On the Republican side, I think one of a major Republican would be a San Diego Congressman, Darrell Issa. He's coming off chairmanship of the Intelligence Committee, got a lot of press for going against President Obama, and has personal wealth that he could support his campaign. So I think he would be a major candidate.
Well, you bring up Issa, and I'm glad you did. He responded to interest in the Senate seat himself by responding, in effect, attacking Senator Boxer's record, saying, quote, "There's been a vacancy for 2 decades. The fact that she's not running doesn't change the fact it's always been a vacant office." So does that say, John, that he's going to run in certain aspects, or is it just saying he's playing politics right now and is waiting closer to the election year?
I think it's an extremely strong possibility that he runs. And to put it in context as far as institutional memory, keep in mind he ran against her before in 1998. He didn't make it out of the Republican primary. At that time, it was a primary type system. But he ran against Barbara Boxer before. So I think his coded words is he personally has been waiting for 20 years.
Now, I need to come back to the point that you were bringing up that Zach Rodham doesn't stand a chance. Now, I know you're very big on Hillary Clinton running in the 2016 presidential election cycle. Doesn't being a nephew of Hillary Clinton have any star power whatsoever in helping the reputation as far as him running on the Democratic side?
Well, let me start off with one of your basic premises. I'm not sure what you mean by that I'm big about Hillary Clinton running, because actually I've been kind of a minority voice as far as saying that I don't think she has a lock on the nomination for Democrats. So I think she has her own battle, to be quite honest with you. I don't think she has a nomination by any far stretch. I've always said keep your eye on Elizabeth Warren from Massachusetts.
Okay, well, I apologize. There's been suggestions in the past that Hillary Clinton was being a big name, and her being a big name and her running in 2016. And obviously, this isn't coincidental that Boxer is now retiring, and that now Zach Rodham, who is the nephew of Hillary Clinton, is now running. And I guess my question to you there, John, is does that have any influence in helping him? Obviously, you don't think so.
Very minimal. The only way it possibly could help him is you need two aspects. You need to have a good candidate, which I don't think he would be a good candidate, but you also need to be able to raise money. Now, if they help him raise money, possibly, and Boxer certainly has a good campaign structure that she's had in place for over 20 years. But again, what Barbara Boxer would have to do if she is supporting him would have to go to her donors. And to be honest with you, the big Democratic donors are also close friends with the current Attorney General, the current Lieutenant Governor, et cetera. So I just don't see how he raises some money. And he literally has zero name ID right now as far as in Democratic circles, as far as potential candidate.
Now, if you were to do a prediction right now, and I know sometimes running predictions, those can change. Who do you think, if there was a top two on the Democratic side who you would think would run, who do you think would run? Would it be Kamala Harris and Gavin Newsom, the Lieutenant Governor and Attorney General, respectively, in this state?
Well, of course I'm going to dodge that question, but I'm going to dodge it for a good reason. All the names that we've mentioned on the Democratic side, certainly most of them, have been gearing up to run for governor in 4 years from now. So really what's going on right now, Jason, as far as today, is all of these names that we've mentioned, they're now making the decision, do I continue my run for governor in 4 years, or do I switch to the Senate? One big advantage to almost all the names that we mentioned is they could run for the Senate in 2016, and if they don't make it either into the general election or ultimately to Washington, then they're in what we call a safe seat because they just won re-election in their current seats. So I think all of those things are going in the equation. So here's what you want to look for before I start naming any strong possibilities. Here's what you want to look for, and I'm going to say very, very soon, and that is who opens campaign committees. Because here's what the big difference is. Barbara Boxer is in a federal office. All these other people have state campaign committees that they've been raising money for under state regulations. Once they start open a federal campaign, raising money under federal regulations, and then you're going to have a good indication who's serious about running.
Oh, certainly. So this will be probably one of the big races in 2016. We thought it was just going to be all about presidential elections, but now we involve California politics, longtime senators announcing retirement. It's going to be a big election year in 2016 indeed. Before I let you go, I want to get your reaction to what Speaker John Boehner has done this week in punishing people who have decided to vote against him earlier in the week for his third term as Speaker of the House. Do you think that is going to hurt John Boehner in the future as far as him being having any possible leadership within the House of Representatives?
No, I don't think it's going to hurt him for several reasons. First of all, I actually watched the live vote for on C-SPAN for Speaker, and keep in mind the people who so-called tried to run against him or other names that were thrown on the floor as far as possible Speaker, they got 1 or 2 votes each, so it wasn't even close on one hand. The other, to answer your question directly, the other aspect is a famous, going way back hundreds of years in both political science and in history, and the famous quote is, if you're going to attack the king, you have to kill the king. You just can't attack him and wound him. And so that's what they did. So this is politics 101. You reward your friends and you hurt your enemies, and anybody who didn't support him clearly showed that they weren't a friend of his.
All right. So it looks like it's going to be oddball 2 years for the Obama administration as a whole. And, of course, John Dadian, you will be with us through it all. And once again, congratulations on being San Diego's most influential man of the year, at least one of them anyway. And I know you have another television interview on local television you have to be on 15 minutes, but thank you for being with us.
Always good to talk to you, Jason. Thank you.
Thank you, John. And we will be right back after these messages.
There we are.
At St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, our discoveries have helped drive the childhood cancer survival rate from 20% to 80%. And we share our research all across America.
I'm 80% sure I'll spoil my kids. I'm 80% sure I'll break boys' hearts. I'm 80% sure we're chick magnets.
80%? I'll take those odds.
Give thanks for the healthy kids in your life and give to those who are not. Go to stjude.org or shop wherever you see the St. Jude logo.
Let's get back to the Evan Miller Report on SHR Media and Pundit Press Radio.
And welcome back to the Evan Miller Report. I'm Jason Miller, along with Corey Evan. Welcome back to the program. Many thanks to John Dadian for joining us. And once again, we do apologize for those technical difficulties. Sometimes those cell phone signals can be a wee bit
Back to the Evan Miller Report,
And now-
ladies and gentlemen. I'm Corey Evan, back with you.
Okay, sorry. We had a technical glitch there, Corey Evan, but you have a couple of U.S. stories you want to make mention before we get over to tonight's lawsuits across America briefly. Okay, looks like we appear to be having an issue with Corey Evan at this.
Yeah.
What I'll ask him to do, we're going to ask him to call back in at this particular point if he possibly can. That would be great. Please, thank you. In the meantime, President Obama said today he would offer a proposal in his State of the Union speech next year that will make 2 years of community college free to anyone willing to work for it. Obama said in a video message released by the White House that in a visit to Tennessee on Friday, he would announce the program to make community college accessible for everyone. Under the proposal, students who attend at least half the time maintain a 2.5 GPA while in a college and make steady progress toward completing their programs would have their tuition eliminated. The White House said the program would be taken in partnership with states and was inspired by new programs in Tennessee and Chicago. If all states participate, an estimated 9 million students could benefit. A full-time community college student save an average of $3,800 in tuition a year. All right, folks, I do apologize for these technical glitches, and hopefully we have Corey Evan back. And Corey,
hopefully it's working now.
Yes, I think we have you back now. So why don't you go ahead and give us that U.S. story I already covered. President Obama announcing about the community colleges should be free for 2 years already. So what else do you have tonight?
Yes, I was trying to mention earlier that a homemade bomb was planted behind the NAACP offices in Colorado Springs, Colorado, and federal authorities are trying to figure out what the motive was behind it. The Colorado Springs chapter of the NAACP reopened today, 2 days after the improvised explosive device detonated outside the building it shares with a hair salon. The explosive device was set off on Tuesday against the exterior wall of the building. A gasoline canister placed next to the bomb did not detonate it. No one was injured in the blast. As well, there's a story about a little girl who was thrown from a bridge, apparently, just 12 hours before police said John Chuck threw his 5-year-old daughter off a bridge. The father calmly told the sheriff's deputy he didn't want to hurt himself or his little girl and had new clarity in his life. Yeah, right. The officer had made a point of interviewing John Chuck in person because John Chuck's own attorney frantically called 911 to report that he was acting strange. John Chuck had been said by the attorney to have called her God and asked her to translate a Bible in Swedish when they met about John Chuck's custody case for his daughter Phoebe. Then police encountered John Chuck again shortly after midnight Wednesday. He was going about 100 miles an hour toward the Sunshine Skyway Bridge. By the time an officer caught up with him, John Chuck had pulled over on the approach span to the bridge and got out and started toward the officer who pulled his weapon. And then John Chuck threw Phoebe Bridge about 60 feet below into the Tampa Bay. And the officer has said that he thought he heard the child scream. Phoebe's body was recovered a mile from the bridge about 2 hours later, and an autopsy and case of death is pending. Very scary story, but I had to bring that to you from ABC News. And I'll go ahead and have that posted on the Facebook page tonight, facebook.com/The Evan Miller Report.
And now it's time for lawsuits across America. The cases are real. All rise for the Honorable Corey Evans.
Right. Sit, ladies and gentlemen. We gotta do this quickly. Angela Box, the former Houston ISD third grade teacher who resigned after clips of her making controversial comments on a YouTube channel through protests, has filed a defamation lawsuit against one of her strongest critics. In state district court Wednesday, lawyers representing Box filed a defamation lawsuit against Houston community activist Quanell X, the New Black Panther Nation, the New Black Muslim Movement, and 2 individuals described as trustees of the New Black Muslim Movement. The suit claims Quanell X misrepresented Box's statements on the YouTube political show Tommy's Garage and painted the teacher as a racist. Quanell X, who said today he had not been served with the lawsuit, was succinct in his response. Box confirmed the lawsuit on her Twitter profile earlier today as part of a fundraising effort which she says will go toward attorneys' fees. The lawsuit seeks between $200,000 and $1 million in damages. And an interesting one that I'd like to bring to you, this from our friends over at the LA Times, this one from PennsylvaniaLive.com. Dauphin County officials are asking a federal judge to toss out a civil rights lawsuit filed by the mother of a county prison inmate who died from what authorities call a clinical event. Susan K. Mason claims in her lawsuit filed in U.S. Middle District Court in August that prison officials are legally liable for her death because they ignored the medical issues and didn't secure proper treatment for her 31-year-old daughter, Monique. Monique Mason, a mother of 2, was awaiting trial on aggravated assault and other charges when she collapsed in the prison in March of 2013. She was taken to a hospital and was declared brain dead 3 days later. County Coroner Graham Hetrick labeled the death as a clinical event, saying the cause was elusive. And with that, I will go ahead and say that I will bring you the latest on that case as details become available. And for the moment, it's case dismissed. And I only have time for a couple of entertainment stories, but I will mention briefly that after struggling in the ratings this fall, Fox has received some very welcome news. Wednesday night's hip-hop drama Empire has opened strong. Blessed with an American Idol lead-in, and also improving on it, Empire premiered to 9.8 million viewers and a 3.7 rating among adults. That's Fox's highest rated series debut in 3 years since 2012's Touch. Empire ranks as the top-rated show in the demo, beating ABC's Modern Family head-to-head, and grew from its Idol lead-in by 19%. As expected, Idol was another story. The music competition, although still popular somewhat, had a downsized hour-long premiere at 8 p.m. that delivered 10.9 million viewers and a 3.1 rating, down 34% from last year and marking a series low for a premiere episode of the 15-year-old franchise. In other news, Idol has been made available online for the first time. And Chris Evans is Betty White's golden boy. The dashing Captain America actor melted hearts at the People's Choice Awards yesterday by escorting the 92-year-old comedic actress to the stage to accept an award. The 33-year-old beefcake leapt into action after White was named favorite TV icon at the awards at the Nokia Theater in LA, sliding up beside the stunned-looking actress and offering his arm. And, of course, Evans managed to go home with the favorite action movie actor award. So congratulations to the two of them. At the box office coming up this weekend, Liam Neeson and Maggie Grace in Taken 3. Also Selma with David Oyelowo and Carmen Ejogo, and Inherent Vice with Joaquin Phoenix and Josh Brolin. The box office this week saw The Hobbit at number 1 with 21.7 million, Into the Woods with Meryl Streep coming out of the woods with 18.7 million, and Unbroken breaking the bank at 18.2 million. Entertainment Report is all done. I hope to entertain you again tomorrow. Till then, I'm Corey Evans saying good night, Jake.
Absolutely, Corey. Thank you very much for that. And real briefly, saw Meryl Streep on an international newscast yesterday, and she says she's really looking forward to doing this upcoming film, Into the Woods. She says she loves doing musicals, and this will be a favorite for her in doing that and working with Emily Blunt and the other actors and actresses in the film. She says she's going to love. She loved working with those films, and she says
she is very versatile, isn't she?
She is,
because not only has she been the Iron Lady, but now she's breaking out into song. So she's definitely got a well-built resume. That's for certain.
Yeah, for sure. And oddball thing is, she said Disney gave the whole cast a month worth to rehearse for this movie, and that doesn't often happen in the movie industry these days. So very interesting. And Meryl Streep, what a class act. You don't see an actress like that these days. And politics aside in Hollywood, Meryl Streep, a very nice actress indeed. And ladies and gentlemen, a programming note to let you know about on this program. Leading into the Evan Miller Report starting tomorrow will be the Liz Laura's Soldier Talk radio show starting at 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific right here on SHR Media. She will be on every Friday evening at 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific, and she will be making her debut on the network tomorrow. So we hope that you tune in tomorrow for the Liz Laura's show, Soldier Talk Radio, at 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific, right here on SHR Media, followed by, of course, the Evan Miller Report. And that is the Evan Miller Report for this Thursday, January the 8th, 2015. I'm Jason Miller. And for Corey Evan and all of us here at SHR, we wish you a great night, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. Good night, everybody.
You've been listening to the Evan Miller Report. For more information about today's program, go to shrmedia.com or thepunditpress.com. Thanks for listening. Hope you tune in again next time.